So I feel very honored to be welcoming him. And some of you might have recalled he presented at the 1999 conference here in Charleston, and he was part of the Stegner Lecture. He has, you can read his full bio on the conference app, and I definitely encourage you to do so, because there's way too much to pick and choose to introduce him and do justice. But I'm going to try and pick out a few things about Dr. Pilkey. He is the James B. Duke Professor Emeritus of Geology in the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University, where he was recently honored with a building being named after him at the Duke Marine Lab in Beaufort, North Carolina. He is also the founder and director emeritus of the Program for the Study of the Developed Shorelines. Dr. Pilkey has authored, co-authored, or edited 39 different books and more than 250 technical publications. In 2011, Global Climate Change, a primer, was published and includes beautiful batik artwork from one of our plenary panelists tomorrow, Mary Edna Frazier. Most recently, he wrote a book with his son Charles, who is also here, and it's a children's activity book titled Lessons from the Sand, Family-Friendly Science Activities You Can Do on a Carolina Beach. Following his presentation today, he will be selling those books and signing out in the hallway. So I encourage everybody to check that out and go home with a book. I would like to welcome Dr. Pilkey up on stage, and I thank you all.
If you're having, there are a few extra seats over here if you're having trouble seeing the slides from the center part of the place here. This is the Changing Seas, is a fantastic inspirational title, I think, for this, because the seas are certainly changing. And that's what I'm going to talk about. This slide here, this first slide, is of my parents' house in Wakeland, Mississippi. As you can see, the house is gone. It disappeared in Hurricane Katrina, but they had also been flooded out by Hurricane Camille, but the house survived. But nothing in the house survived. Everything had, had all the books and all that were ruined. But after Hurricane Katrina, we went down to my brother and I came to help my parents. Well, actually, this time, by the time this photo was taken, they were dead. But we went down to the beach in Waveland, Mississippi, and we noticed a particular house right on the beach, a particular lot right on the beach, and it was for sale for $800,000. And the house had disappeared from that lot in Hurricane Camille. It had been rebuilt, and then it disappeared in Hurricane Katrina, and it was worth $800,000. I understand it now has a house on it. We shall see. I don't have the, well, here, yes, I have it after all. At any rate, I want to go through it. I'm going to emphasize sea level rise here in global climate change, but especially sea level rise. And here is the ideal beach we all dream about, a beach in the Virgin Islands, all calcareous, very soft, nobody else there but you. But that doesn't happen very often. Here's the beach in Ireland, kind of what we call a pocket beach, a beach between two headlands. And here's the typical California beach, where the source of sand is the erosion of the bluff. And part of the problem, of course, in California is when you try to stop, people who live on top of the bluffs want to stop the erosion. When they stop the erosion, they cause the beach to erode. And there we are in Korea, southern part of South Korea. This is the most densely populated beach of people actually actively swimming that I've ever seen. Here is part of the LBJ seawall in Jekyll Island, Georgia. After Hurricane Donna, I think it was in 1962, while I and my family lived on Sappho Island, Georgia, LBJ came flying down in a helicopter and gave all of the Belk shoreline except for Tybee Island. He generously gave them a seawall, which they really didn't need. But anyway, you can see what happens when you have a seawall here. There is no beach, as you can tell from this photo. There's no beach at high tide. When I show this slide, when I used to show it to my students, I would ask, what's wrong with this picture? And that's one of the great hotels in the United States, and it has no beach in front of it because the seawall took out the beach. Let me get a glass of water here. This is all the evidence that's affecting the sea level, that's affecting the level of the sea. And I argue that, well, as you know, we have a leader in this country who's called global climate change a hoax, which is a very, very insulting thing to most scientists. If he had said, well, that the evidence for the rate at which changes are occurring is very complex, and there are a lot of assumptions made that might not always be perfectly valid, and so forth and so on. But to call it a hoax is indeed an insult to the scientific community. This is I won't read them, but it's all pretty obvious. Everything here is causing an increase in the level of the sea. This is mountain glaciers. If all the mountain glaciers in the world disappeared today, the sea level would rise about a foot. If all the ice on Earth melted today, the sea level would rise 220 feet. This place would be in trouble, I think. Anyhow, let's see. Here it is in 2002. And this is a photograph taken by Bruce Molney of the USGS. And he went around all of the Alaskan coast and that had glaciers and took photos of the changes that have occurred over the last 50 years, which is very interesting. Well, in the 20th century, we believe that the main cause of sea level rise is probably thermal expansion of the water as it warmed down to a depth of about 2,000 feet, something like that. But in the 21st century, it appears that the Antarctica, especially West Antarctica, is going to be the driver of sea level rise. And it looks more and more ominous, and more evidence of major changes in the ice sheet of Antarctica. This is Greenland, a drawing from, I think, a New Yorker. And it shows two of the major ice sheets. The one on the bottom there, the south tip of Greenland, is the one that produced the iceberg that sank the Titanic. Let's see, how do I get to that one? Whoops. I wanted to stay there. Anyhow, the lowermost segment of this glacier is now today moving at 150 feet per day. So if you can stand off to the side and you have somebody standing on the ice, you can allegedly, at least, you can actually see them move. So things are moving fast in Antarctica. East Antarctica is not considered to be an immediate problem, partly because of the rough topography on the continental shelf surrounding East Antarctica, which is kind of holding the glaciers in. But on West Antarctica, due to global climate change, probably, there is winds are blowing offshore. And as winds blow offshore, this water comes from somewhere else to replace that water. And that water coming up to replace the water is warm water, warmer relatively by Antarctic standards. And that's causing much of the melting that's going on. And that's the major problem with that wind pattern. There are many estimates of what will happen. Here's the New York City sea level rise panel, which I chose because they have very distinguished people involved in this. But this is about 5 years out of date, and things are changing so fast in Antarctica that they might change it. They argue that they predict that sea level rise will be between 2 feet and 4 feet, basically, and that it is possible at 6 feet that it could raise 6 feet. And what would you think 6 feet would do to Charleston? This is a local proof of sea level rise discovered by a geologist when he was looking at geologist Hal Wanless, when he was looking at some photographs made by a biologist of a bridge abutment in Miami, and he suddenly noticed that there was a difference between the 1949 photo and 1981 photo. So, according to this, 6 inches of sea level rose 6 inches between 1949 and 1981. Now, in all these things, you have to consider all the possibilities. It's possible that the bridge abutment sank. You know, is this the abutment sinking or is this sea level rise? In this case, it's probably sea level rise because there's other evidence that backs this up. Here, you see this all up and down the lowermost coastal plain of North and South Carolina. The killing of trees due to flooding by sea level rise. This is a particularly large, the largest that I've seen, a large area of dead trees. What happens here is not the salt water that's apparently that's killing the trees, it's the moving up of the fresh water which floats on top of the salt water, and that drowns the roots, which causes the death of the trees. Well, sometimes evidence can be confusing. Here is Nags Head, North Carolina. It looks like a pretty severe erosion problem here. Look, there's a house out on the beach, and then the sand here has been bulldozed up. But 3 days later, this is two photographs taken by Ray midgets, one of the midget families of the Outer Banks. This is 3 days later. It was a southeast wind that brought all the sand up. Pretty interesting. Here's the evidence of erosion on Washaway Beach, an appropriately named community. You can see four pipes that furnish water to 4 different houses that fell in. This is one of the few communities where house prices are higher away from the beach than on the beach. Here is the remnants of a pillbox in Normandy. Here is these are World War I guns that were put up by the Portuguese to defend the capital of Mozambique and Maputo. And here are cities that have moved because of sea level rise. Or in the case of Diamond City, it was moved after major hurricanes. But the other 3 moved because basically their island disappeared, that they could no longer maintain buildings here. So, and here's the biggest of all. There are 28 villages here on this Holden Coast in England. 28 villages that are sitting out on the, or former villages that are sitting out on the continental shelf. This was first published in a book that wasn't noticed until recently in 1912. It's pretty interesting. The white line there is what they think is the Roman shoreline when the Romans invaded England. That's where the shoreline was, and everything, and all those other villages fell in after the invasion. If you look carefully, Ravensir Odd down at the bottom of the south end of the spit there was mentioned 3 times by Shakespeare. Here is what it looks like today. This is a combination of a village falling in and an old World War II pillbox. And here's another really interesting evidence of sea level rise. And what's fascinating to me is this came from a postcard. I just don't think you'd see this postcard in the United States. This this island, if you see, there are different scales, so you have to be a little careful of this, but you can see that the island has thinned considerably between 1969 and 1989. And that is because, we think, that, in order for an island to migrate, islands know what they're doing. They're going to get out of the way of sea level rise. They have been doing it for centuries, for thousands of years. And the first thing they have to do, they have to get thin, they have to get narrow. And once they're narrow, overwash can occur, and overwash can go all the way over the island and onto the back side. And at the same time, you have erosion on the front side. So you have erosion and overwash widening the island, and that's island migration. Ironically, as obvious as island migration is now, it wasn't really discovered, so to speak, although some individual citizens knew about it. It was discovered in the 1970s by 3 graduate students. All the old heroes and so forth, including me, not as a hero, but I was already doing work. It didn't occur to me. And so this thing is so obvious that it's happening. But anyway, so that's what this island is doing, getting thin. And we looked at all the barriers. There are 2,200 barrier islands in the world. Of course, that varies from day to day, depending on how many inlets form and so forth. And we found this to be a worldwide pattern. Sometimes when there's salt marsh on the backside, and sometimes, of course, there's seawalls on the front side. That does not happen. Mangroves on the backside also. But in an island like this, it has no mangroves or salt marsh on the backside. It's thinning very, very quickly. Obviously, to you people here who are marine oriented, you know that it's more than just sea level rise, and that's what's happening here in Charleston when we have this occasional flooding, king tide flooding and things like that. But we have storm surges is a big thing, and king tides, and groundwater salinization. There are a number of places along Chesapeake Bay, along Delaware Bay, where farms have been abandoned because of salinization, even though there's no inundation. This is from a South Carolina paper just down the road here a few weeks ago, and how true it is that all of a sudden the people here are really experiencing a lot of flooding at high tide, especially at spring tide and king tide. And here's an example. This is the road to Tybee Island, Georgia, due to a king tide, not due to a storm, but due to a king tide. That's so impressive. And here is Miami, which gets a lot of publicity. What they don't say in the publicity is that often it really stinks, because a lot of this is sewers coming out. Not only is it salt water, but it's smelly salt water. Here's increasing storm. This is a storm that hit this particular town in France that was not a town that had not been hit in historic times by big waves, they said. And perhaps, although this is a bit controversial, as to whether storm intensity will increase due to global climate change. Here's another example. Look at some of the position of one or two of those buildings and see what a storm surge does in France. The sea, the open ocean is to the right in this photo. And then look at Boston. Boy, does that look low. It is very low. Boston, all of downtown Boston is built on land that was pumped up in one way or another from the harbor, Boston Harbor. And it's extremely susceptible to sea level rise. And they're making some plans. They're talking to the Dutch. They're trying to imitate the Dutch, and I'll show you some things about that in a minute. This is on Tavera Island, Portugal. The head of this is one of the national. This is the national park. There are 7 barrier islands in the Algarve of Portugal, and this is on Tavera, and this is called Tavera Inlet, that Tavera Island to the left. The head of Park Service in Portugal told us that one day he was standing at his window, kind of with his hand on his hip, looking at his empire and all that. And he suddenly noticed that there was a barge over there dumping rocks along the inlet. And he had not heard about that. Their equivalent of the Corps of Engineers makes our Corps of Engineers look very good. It's difficult to do. So they built the jetty, and you can see what the jetty did. You all know about this. All the sand piled up on one side, the other side, the erosion is severe. This is a 10-year-old photo. So probably the next island down has the seawall along the entire thing. And here is a not atypical type village along the coast of Africa and parts of Africa and parts of Latin America where a 1 foot sea level rise would be a catastrophe. Another possible catastrophe are the nuclear power plants, which are quite abundant along our coastline. This is one in the UK. My friend who took it, Joe Kelly, said that as he was taking this, 2 uniformed guards came running out and threatened to take away his camera, and he pretended to pull out the film, thinking that maybe they didn't recognize that it was a more modern camera, and they let him go. But this is not a coast that's going to have that has a high potential of a tsunami like the one that occurred in Japan. But you can see what happened with the nuclear power plant in Japan, and it will happen again. And just like the one in the Ukraine, a large area of land has now been made useless. And here is a nuclear power plant that's no longer working. Here on this coast, they're talking about the Big Nine. The Big Nine refers to the Big Nine earthquake, like the one that occurred in Japan, that will produce a big tsunami. They're expecting this in Oregon, Washington, and California. And this nuclear power plant is amazingly close. Not working now, though. And here's one that I discovered this when I was driving up and down the Florida coast. And there it was, a nuclear power plant on Hutchinson Island. I could not believe that this is maybe 3 feet above sea level. I just can't understand that. Enough of that. Let's look at another optimistic subject here about beaches that are doomed. Let's go look at this. Is Fort Lauderdale. What do you think they're going to do in the sea level rise? This is Honolulu. What are they going to do? Here's Cartagena. Here, I think this is Brazil. I forgot where this is exactly, but I think it's Brazil. Look at the impact of high rises on the beach, the shadowing effect that some communities are really worried about. And this is Alexandria, Egypt. And this is another town that I can't pronounce in Brazil. And finally in Spain. This is all the great beaches that tourism communities or people would talk about are lined by high rises. Well, here's what's going to happen by the year 2100. There will be no beaches in front of these buildings. The sea level shoreline wants to be over there, and you're trying to hold the shoreline here. So this shoreline here is very unstable, it's out of equilibrium. And as you keep pumping sand, it's going to disappear faster and faster, and it's going to cost more and more. So I predict that we're seeing the future here in this Recife, Brazil example. Now, what the problem with this, there's a volleyball court right there, and every once in a while they say they lose the ball. If you can imagine. And the sand here, some claim, is turned into a giant sandpit for cats. A real problem in terms of, I don't know what that is. Miami, Florida, let's look at some more doomed cities. Miami is doomed to all over the world, no question. And here's the reason why. Is this Miami limestone, otherwise called the Miami oolite. Excuse me. This is highly porous limestone. And in fact, there are some small ponds in Miami that Helen Lemons tells me actually, the tide actually is, you can actually measure a tide over there that corresponds to the offshore tide. The tide you measure in a pond may be a few centimeters or less than that, but nonetheless, so in a way, Miami is basically like some of the cities in Myanmar and some in Colombia that are sitting on lakes, on stilts. And that's what Miami is. Miami is sitting on a lake, in effect, on stilts. And they can build levees, they can build dikes, they can build seawalls, and they ain't gonna help at all. It's not gonna stop the sea level rise. Here's the aerial extent of the Miami oolite, or Miami limestone, and you can see that it goes all the way up to Fort Lauderdale. However, the people of Miami are unimpacted by this. Here is the Brickell City Center, a rendition of what it is. It's a $2 billion project going on right now. Now, maybe this is high enough for a while, but the roads coming to this place will be flooded very early in the game. So this is crazy. And this is crazy also. This is from South Africa. You have to know that this must have actually happened. Now, to change the subject here, look at sea level rise refugees. That's a really interesting problem. Refugees are, well, they're already starting in the Arctic villages and then in the atoll. I don't really know the number of Arctic villages, villagers, but I think probably 10,000 is a good ballpark thing. Atolls definitely have about 1 million people living on them. The atolls in the Pacific and Indian Ocean. The barrier islands, of course, have millions, and they're in trouble. And deltas, perhaps, are really in more trouble than our barrier islands. And there you have hundreds of millions of people. For example, the Nile Delta, the Mississippi Delta, and so forth. When you name the delta, and it's in trouble. Deltas were formed all within the last 5,000 years, and they're very low because they're of the nature of the process of forming them. Here is a photograph of Shishmaref, Alaska. This is a village of 580 people, plus or minus, that is planning on, they're trying to move. They want to move because of the obvious problem of the eroding shoreline. The blue building there is a school, and the red building is the store. Here's the problem. Here in Shishmaref in the winter, in the old days being 2 decades ago, the ice didn't form until September sometime, and it formed in September. And as soon as the ice formed on the ocean, then there was no problem. You could have all kinds of storms that wouldn't affect the erosion problem. And also, 2 or 3 decades ago, the permafrost in the beach sand did not melt, or did not significantly melt. Now, it melts down to 5 to 10 feet, and so that means the sand is loose. And then adding one more element here, now it doesn't freeze over until November, sometime in November. So during all that time, the loose sand is being impacted by storms. This is happening in all the villages. Couldn't resist this one. This is at 20 below zero in February, photo of dogs that seem to be perfectly happy. Well, I'm not sure they're happy, but at least they don't look unhappy. And here's another Eskimo, Eskimo village of about the same size. All the villages are about 500 people, plus or minus, because if you get more than that, then you run out of the fish. These are subsistence villages. Is it worth saving subsistence villages? No cost-benefit ratio would ever work here and under normal cost-benefit conditions. So are these important? And I think they are important. One of the solutions would be to move the people to the nearby, to move to the cities like Nome or Kotzebue or something like that. These are cities by Arctic standards, by Northern Alaska standards. But the problem is, and they recognize this, the problem is alcohol. And well, first of all, what do people who know how to fish and hunt very well, what do they do in Nome? Secondly, is the alcohol problem, which is in most of these villages it is illegal to possess or bring in alcohol, although you can see it is occasionally violated rather severely. And this is Majuro Atoll, which is part of the Marshall Islands, which is kind of a protectorate of the United States. And all along the front here, they're really suffering an erosion problem. And where can they move? As you can see, there is no high ground here. Some atolls, although you wouldn't, I really call them atolls, some of them have a volcano. These, of course, originally formed as a coral reefs encircling the volcano, and this is Darwin was the one who discovered this, who interpreted it. If you have high ground, you can maybe move to it, but most of them don't have any high ground. And so therefore, they're trying to move to, like Tuvalu atolls are moving slowly to New Zealand. And some atolls, Majuro is probably hoping they can move to the United States, since they are a protectorate. Here's the bad one, the Maldives. And they are currently, there are many atolls belong to the Maldives. And this is the main one, of course. And you can see, my goodness, yeah, they are in serious trouble. They have bought some land, and I can't remember where. They bought some land to move to. And in the atoll, the Carteret atolls off New Guinea they have moved, the people have moved when they discovered that the children were suffering from malnutrition. They forced them to move to New Guinea. And the people there who have moved to New Guinea are very unhappy, understandably. You know, what do you do in New Guinea after living on an atoll? But anyhow, and the one thing that's very distressing to me is right now, or at least a year ago, they were building 9 new airstrips on the various atolls that belong to the Maldives. Well, the mother of them all, in terms of danger and hazard from storms, of the Ganges Delta in Bangladesh and India. And typically every time they had a hurricane, they would lose 100,000 people. What the Dutch suggested that they do, and they did quite successfully apparently, is to build a bunch of shelters. And these shelters are there for anybody who can run to the shelter and whatever, when a storm is predicted. And apparently it's working. But many people from Bangladesh, from the Delta, are trying to move. And most of them are moving to Dhaka, which is a horrible city by most standards, as indicated here. Very corrupt and very low. It itself will be affected by the hurricane and by the sea level rise. Here is the Great Wall of India, which is there for the purpose of stopping the people from Bangladesh from moving into India. I don't know how. I can't imagine that will be successful. Maybe that's the kind of wall we're going to build. I don't know. This is Colombia, on the Pacific coast of Colombia. Colombia is a country that is, in some parts, fairly wealthy, but other parts are very poor. And here, on these islands, there are small villages which are basically ignored by the government. And the islands they suffer from tectonic sea level rise. What happens? The northern Andes are very close to these islands, who, by the way, were not recognized as islands by the British British Admiralty or the U.S. Navy maps or charts because nobody went ashore. And from the land, it looked like they were, well, actually, the U.S. copied the British Admiralty chart. Anyhow, as the Andes rise, the coast goes down. And what happens if you're living on the coast, all of a sudden, overnight perhaps, the shoreline will drop a foot. Sometimes, in one case, it dropped a meter, 3 feet or so, for a stretch of shoreline of 50 miles. So they have a unique kind of sea level rise. Plus, they have real sea level rise on top of that. And here is if you can barely read the sign welcoming you to this hotel. At the time this photo was taken, the hotel was still operating, and the charge was $3 a night. We stayed in a hotel that was not on this island, in nearby Buenaventura, that cost $15 a night, and the big motel that was for tourists, and it was a fancy one, $30 a night. But at any rate, you can see that this hotel has a very limited lifespan in front of it. It's waiting for the next tectonic event. And one indication of how there is no government, no generous government waiting in the wings to help these people. They're strictly on their own. Now here's the seawall that they built on the left side there, and that is, and this is during a high tide. This is not during a storm. This is right on near the equator, where big storms are not common. So what do? They move their building. Here is a building that looks like it's being constructed, but actually it's being destructed. And the walls of the house were built out of panels, and these panels can be carried by 2 men back into the jungle at a higher elevation site. And this is their approach. And, okay, pollution, another good subject. I feel very particularly strongly about this. My grandson, who was 23 at the time, who was an avid surfer, he was surfing along the southern part of the Olympic Peninsula in a very remote kind of area, and he cut his foot on the seafloor, and of course courageously kept on surfing, and he ended up catching MRSA, which is a very dangerous kind of thing. And it turns out it's very likely that it did come from surfing because they have found MRSA on some of the waters off Washington State, which is very remote waters. And now they found it in Southern California, they found it in South Florida. Not very common, not very abundant, often not there, but it's there. And he was a victim of that, and of course that's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. He's doing fine now. Here is an interesting type of pollution. This is a pollution that occurs as a result of nearby farms, which produce all kinds of fertilizers. Too much nutrients are going into the seawater, so you have a lot of algae of various kinds, seaweed. And this same problem has happened in Oregon and some other places where on the upper part of the beach, a very hard crust often forms as the seaweed weathers. And on this very beach here, somebody was riding along the upper part of the beach with a horse, and suddenly the horse foot went through the crust, and a cloud of hydrogen sulfide came out. They killed the horse, and the man who was riding the horse was rescued, but he was quite ill affected by this. And the same thing in Oregon, there was a case where some dogs were killed walking along the beach. A very strange kind of pollution. Here is not exactly pollution, but something that I understand. This is on Bug Bank, where very soft sand. And now on this beach, young children and old adults like me can't get to the beach. I think I can make it here, but anyhow, this is a problem for many people. here is the worst pollution, obvious pollution I've ever seen. This is a human sewer that's going onto a beach, a recreational beach in Mumbai. It's worse than that. Some people defecate on the beach, and as one friend of mine walking on the beach in Mumbai is like dancing through the turds. But it's very, I mean, you should never, well, I told probably 2,000 students that if you have a cut or something, if you have poison ivy from walking through the maritime forest, wade into the shoreline and it'll get better. But I would go out dead wrong on that one. You don't want to swim with any cut or abrasion. And when you look at the literature on pollution, I'm sometimes distressed with the scientists who study pollution on beaches because they're being quiet. For example, with all kinds of data that often the sand is more polluted than the water. So we measure the quality of the beach by measuring the water and so forth and so on. So this is a serious problem. Now here's another problem. This is very common on major tourist areas, the plowing of the beach, the raking of the beach, and of course that kills everything, almost everything that's in the beach, whether that's good or bad. Of course, it affects the whole ecosystem. And here's the problem in the Dominican Republic. This particular location, the local people were not responsible for the garbage. This is an oceanographic phenomenon, which is there's a very spectacular place in Mexico on the Atlantic coast, and and Hawaii, there's a beach in Hawaii where the currents and all the oceanographic conditions are such that all the plastic goes onto the beach. And this is a common theme in Morocco. This is Morocco. Tourists on the beach just simply dump their garbage on the backside. And here's the Corona Save the Beach hotel. And this hotel is being transported from the capital cities of Europe in the hope of publicizing the fact that our beaches are being sources of all kinds of garbage and stuff. This hotel actually has 3 rooms, and they have prominent people, whatever town they're in, rent the hotel for a night or 2. I don't know whether it's having impact. I hope it has. What are our solutions to all this problem? Well, I'll go through some examples here. The biggest problem is what to do about hundreds of miles of high-rise line shoreline in Florida. I think Florida has by far the worst problem. The long-term future of Florida beach of tourism in Florida is very dismal. I think you're not going to move high-rises, and if you could move high-rises, they can't get across bridges. And even if you could get across bridges, there's no place to bridge. In general, the land behind the barrier line is lower than the barrier line. Well, one possibility is to do nothing, like the lighthouse, which is just down the road from here off Folly Beach. That's actually off the Morris Island. That lighthouse was built about that distance back of the beach, the current beach. The reason for this erosion is due to the Charleston jetties built in the 1890s. Another approach is to mitigate. And to mitigate, at best, this is a very temporary problem. Here's the building. It's a good thing to do. The building is being raised, and so the future storm surges for a while will go under it. When the big one comes, they're not going to go under it. And here is, this makes a very important point. In diagrams written by geologists, drawn by geologists, or engineers, or scientists in general, we always use great vertical exaggeration. And that bottom diagram is you see a little bitty red spot at the end of it on the left side. That's the size of Miami Beach when it was first put in shown in full scale, in true scale. The point is that This is why nourished beaches disappear fast. They're fiddly. They're little bits of sand up at the upper end of the beach, and they're nothing in terms of what the waves can do in a storm. And here's one way. This is in Dubai. This is nourishing a beach, but they've got a desert right behind the city there. So that helps. Here's the lighthouse. I and two companions formed the Move the Lighthouse Committee, and because we helped to move the lighthouse, that is, in terms of politics, I was given the honor of moving the lighthouse by pulling the lever down so it would be pushed. And every time you pull the lever down, it was going to go 30 feet. Well, I pulled it down about 10 feet, and then something went wrong. But at least I did move it 10 feet. The maximum amount of moving here was done 300 feet a day. Really spectacular. And the locals who were so opposed to it are now absolutely delighted with it. It actually increased the size of the tourist industry for this portion of our banks. But there was a long battle where they found an expert to show that there was no erosion. They found an expert to show that there was no, that brick structure like that would fall apart, etc. Well, here's an older example of moving back. This is, if you can probably guess that this building was owned by the railroad company. It was a Brighton Beach hotel, and it suffered erosion because of a groin. If you see the tip of the groin on the right side of the diagram. And here's the Outer Bank photo of this is the house that was in the dreadful movie, the Nights in Rodin. And the reason I think that was an absolutely dreadful movie is because right in the middle of it, they went through a storm. They're sitting on a house on the beach where the waves are going under at a normal tide. And so they stay right in the building, and you hear the shutters banging and all that stuff. You should be, in a storm in the Outer Banks, you should be in Raleigh. This is the rather famous, locally famous outlaw house from the outlaw family in Little City. It's been moved back 3 times or 5 times, depending on who you believe. It was initially moved first 2 times by mules pulling it back and rolling on logs. Recently, this got some publicity because the guy had a new owner there. When I was there one time with a group of 40 students, off to the right, not shown here, was a beach cottage, a big beach cottage, and there was a guy in the bathroom, and he was mimicking himself and laughing. He was doing all kinds of things that maybe we all do when nobody's watching. But when he turned around and looked outside, there were 40 students smiling and one professor. And I think you'll probably not forget that. Okay, coexisting. This is a New Zealand type photo. The idea is to buttress up the base of the skyscrapers and have something. You could have boats, or you could use this modern system of communication. The problem here, of course, is what do you do in a storm? Anyhow, the Dutch are the whole country of Holland is on Delta, and it's an engineering company. It's a society rich in engineers and rich in money, and as a consequence, they're really doing. We shouldn't look at them for. When some people are bringing the Dutch over here to look at Barrier Island and stuff, but Barrier Island are not their thing. They don't need. We got a lot of land. I mean, you can always go to Wyoming or something like that. We got land all over. We can move. They ain't got nothing. They have no land anywhere to move. And cities like Rotterdam, many parts of it are below sea level. But the Dutch could have some advice for Charleston, I think. I think that would be a reasonable thing. Anyhow, this is the storm surge barrier, and that wall there that would come park in storm surge is 70 feet high. Now, we're talking about getting storm surge barriers in Hudson River. They talked about it in Wilmington, North Carolina. They talked about it at Galveston, Texas. But it ain't going to work here because it has to be attached to something very substantial. And here in Rotterdam, it's attached to a major dune seawall system and so forth. Because if we put it here, say in the Hudson River, all we have to do is just direct the storm surge around the side of it. And so therefore you destroy something else other than what they were protecting with the storm surge. So this is not a solution except in very unusual situation. Here is an example. This is a park. And in the park you can see a place where they can have plays and stuff like that. I think there's a volleyball court, tennis court, and all that. But the whole purpose of this park is to flood. They want this to flood in the next storm or the next flood of the river. They have both floods and rivers and storms, storm surge. So if you close the gate, for example, then you're also holding in the river flood. It's a very complex thing. But they have several parks like this. They have underground parking garages that are intended to be flooded. Boston is talking about doing the same thing. Here is a 100-foot seawall around Manhattan. This is from a science fiction movie or TV show, I think. But here, if you're going to, this you'd have to do around Barrier Island. If you're going to keep a barrier island, most barrier islands are going to require a seawall around the entire island eventually by the year 2100. And of course, it's going to destroy the beach. You give up on the beach when you build a massive seawall. But here they don't have, there's no beach to worry about. So this is defending a city, which is a different matter. Okay, who's listening? First of all, I'm so impressed with the U.S. military, which seems to me, among government agencies, to really leading the way in trying to respond to and thinking and planning about sea level rise. In Norfolk, where they have the world's largest naval base, they are raising their ports, their docks. When you think about it, every dock in the world is exactly the same elevation. Every dock in the world is going to have to be moved or raised. And it's assumed that a lot of countries won't do it or can't do it very readily, and that international commerce is going to be very much affected by the dock problem. In 2 years ago, the military budget had a rider to it that said, "Don't use this to respond to sea level rise or to global climate change, and don't use this to plan for global climate change." Anyhow, of course, the military ignored that. And thank goodness. North Carolina DOT, as an example, Department of Transportation, they're planning to raise the roads in some of the lower parts of the state. That's okay, but when you do that, you're forming a bunch of dams, and that's kind of complex. And then, of course, we have Rotterdam, which I just showed you. And let me say one more thing. Well, yeah, here's a sign after Hurricane Sandy. This is a Rockaway Beach. This is a beachfront community. This is a wall that's on the beach. No retreat, no surrender, not now, not ever. Rockaway forever. And they are wrong. And here is the sea level. And I want to say a few things about this book that we brought in. This is the cover of the book. And in this book, it's basically designed for field trip leaders to the beach. We have many examples like this one, is how to measure the tide, amplitude. We also have things on how to measure wave height. The big secret there is you assume that all surfers are 6 feet tall and go from there. Then there are things. We talk about the principles of beaches, where you're going to be talk about how to measure the current and all that. Then there's things like, how do we, why does the sand bark over here and why doesn't it bark there? I bet some of you didn't even know the sand barks. You all know what sand barking is? When you shuffle your feet, you hear, it's called singing sand, barking sand. I like barking, but there are different tones from different sand. Why? And why did it bark there and did over here and so forth? Oh, oh dear. That's enough. Thank you.